Hi, this is a VR to IndigoSpeaker, and he recently did a video on charging money for spiritual services, and he asked for VRs. I promised to do one, and then my computer got wonky, but it's cool. Doing it now. The funny thing was, when he posted asking for video responses, I had just the night before had this very long conversation with my best friend in her kitchen at like 3 a.m. about charging money for spiritual services, the ethics of it, the sustainability of it, and so on. I know I've had this conversation countless times in my life. It's always a very hot topic. It's always a very controversial topic. I mean, honestly, I don't know if I can think of something that's more controversial than charging money for spiritual services. Those are some of the most heated debates I've ever been party to. It's a tough one. When I was growing up, I was in a very open household. Spiritual exploration was very much encouraged and facilitated by my parents. It's kind of a hippie upbringing, and I grew up I lived for several years in Southern California. We went to Christian churches, we went to bonfires on the beach, whatever we were interested in, we were allowed to do, and my mother helped us. There were always bookshelves full of books about different religions and metaphysical concepts in the house, and it wasn't until I was 11 that I found a couple of books on witchcraft and paganism, and I started to self-identify that way. But most of these things I was very familiar with before that age. So I've always sort of been aware of this, that a certain segment of the population in general feels like you shouldn't charge for spiritual services. I'm not sure why that is. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to be honest. I feel like it could possibly be a reaction to the fact that there are frauds out there. So there's sort of this nobility in not charging. I'm going to give it to you for free to show you how legitimate I am. Strange logic, but I think that might be just reactionary. There's also, I've heard people say that people in the metaphysical community won't pay. I don't think that's true. I mean, I know we pay for things. I know that we have tons of books and crystals and tea and herbs and jewelry and all, like, come on, we pay for things. Why do we have an issue paying for non-tangible items? It's kind of an interesting thought. An argument that I think I've heard the most recently is spirituality should be free because I could do this myself. I could find it myself. You could, but you're not. I could paint my house myself, but that doesn't mean I expect a house painter to do it for free just because potentially I could do it myself. I think the same goes for spiritual services. I could read my own cards, but sometimes I want someone else to do it for me. I want their insight. I want their gifts. I could study a new interest of mine. For instance, if I wanted to learn palmistry, I could go out and buy every book on palmistry I could find. I could go to the library. I could watch videos. I could teach it to myself. But that doesn't mean that someone shouldn't charge to teach that to me when they've already done the legwork. They've already done the put in the time, put in the effort to gain the knowledge and the experience and be worth it. I think that there is a shift happening, though. I feel like recently, more and more, people are realizing this is something that I find value in, that I need to pay for it. In the conversation I was having with my friend, one of the things that came up was, when we lived in caves and we were a more tribal society, tribes had spiritual leaders, whether they were medicine men or shaman or wise women. The spiritual leaders were revered and cherished by the tribe. They were considered important. And so when somebody needed something from them, when somebody needed a birth to be blessed, or insight into their future or their current situation, when someone needed some sort of healing, the spiritual leaders were there, but they were taken care of. They were given things in exchange. Of course, back in the day, what they were given was meat and animal hides and beads and so on. Our society doesn't function on that system anymore. I mean, it's great. I love the barter system. I think it's brilliant. But in practice, it doesn't always work. That's why we have currency. In this day and age, instead of giving you food, I give you money so you can go buy food. It's the same thing. It's the same thing as an offering. There's a definite resistance even within me, and I fully support people who run spiritual businesses, who charge for spiritual services and teaching. But even within myself, there's this resistance there. There's this, oh, we shouldn't have to, but we do have to, because we have to eat, and we have to put a roof over our heads, and we have to support our children and our families. And if we don't charge, how are we going to do that? In IndigoSpeaker's video, he pointed out that his job is demanding physically and mentally, and he comes home drained. That doesn't leave a lot of time to devote to personal growth, to study, and then to putting those gifts out in the community. How do we expect people to function if we don't respect and support them charging for what they do? Is there really a nobility? Do we really believe that there's some sort of inherent value in suffering? Like, I don't. But maybe I'm missing something in the community. Like, do we believe that there's some sort of integrity in being tired and poor and sick? Because that's what we're asking our spiritual leaders to become. If we're asking them to foot the bill for everything they do, to find some other way to support themselves financially, and then to find time for us, like, that's a lot. That's a lot to ask. Do we think that they deserve that, or do we think we deserve that? Like, where is the disconnect here? I think there is a shift in the community. I think it's a lot of the new economy. People are opening Etsy shops and building home-based businesses, even outside of the metaphysical community. So now that that's happening, I'm sensing a shift in the thought process here. I'm sensing that it's more acceptable to charge. Because, of course, if I'm hoping to support myself with a spiritual business, how can I condemn someone else for doing the same thing? And then, of course, in the most recent debate over this that happened within this specific community, which was several months ago, it was before I moved to Maine, so it was several months ago, but there was a pretty big blow up over charging for services. And And something that I heard a lot was, well, you can charge, you just can't charge too much. And I think that's a real slippery slope. Like that's not a healthy outlook on it, because if it's too much, then don't pay it. Find someone else who offers the same thing for less. If you can't find someone else who offers the same thing for less, it's probably because the first person isn't charging too much. And even if you can find somebody offering the same thing at a cheaper rate, it doesn't mean the first person is charging too much. Their rates may be based on more experience, more training, or higher demand. It's how our system works. There's nothing unethical about that. You know, the ethics of charging aren't so much in the charging, but in what you do for the ethics of charging for spiritual services aren't so much in the actual charging for spiritual services, but in what you do for the money you're paid. So we've all heard those horror stories and seen the lawsuits and the news coverage of people who were fortune tellers, and a client comes in and they get a reading from them, and the person tells them, you have a curse on you, I can lift it for $15,000. Well, that's not ethical. But that's not unethical because they charged money. That's unethical because they're taking advantage of somebody. That's just plain common sense. It has nothing to do with the amounts. It has nothing to do with the act of charging. It has to do with the fact that they're a con artist. Period. Does that change? Does it make somebody less of a con artist by working for free? No. That shifts it completely and makes that person suffer unnecessarily when they should be valued and respected and able to support themselves. I think that this stems from a greater societal dysfunctional relationship with money. We've all heard money's the root of all evil. But money isn't the root of all evil. Money is neutral. Money is a thing. It's not good or bad. It just is. It just exists. Any evil, if you believe in that kind of thing, is from the human. Is from the human side of the equation. Is from the person who is unethical in their business practices, who is unethical in their daily lives, who takes advantage of others in order to gain money. But to be fair, if money didn't exist, that person would still take advantage of others. They would just take advantage of others to gain status, power, resources. Money is just a resource. It's not anything other than that. We all deserve, in my opinion, to be able to have food and shelter and clothes and something that feeds our soul, at bare minimum, like bare minimum. We all deserve a warm bed to sleep in at night, food on the table, clothes on our back, and something extra. We can't vilify the act of charging for spiritual services, because that takes the blame off of the people who are really doing unethical things. That puts the blame on the act of charging, instead on the act of being a douche nozzle. I don't want to take the blame off of the people who are doing horrible things in order to acquire money. I don't want to put that blame on money. I want them to be accountable for their actions. Okay, this video is getting kind of long, and I could keep talking because it's a big topic. It's a big topic. There's lots to talk about. There's everything from, so I'm just going to end it here and welcome comments and VRs and conversation and input. Thank you.